Jazzcast Pros.
Did you know that your body is constantly sending you signals? Quiet cues about your stress levels, your sleep quality, and how well you're really recovering. The key to unlocking those messages is a powerful metric called the Heart Rate Variability, or the HRV. And it's one of the most underutilized yet powerful biofeedback tools we have, especially when it comes to your sleep. In this episode of the Doze Podcast, I'm decoding HRV, what it is, how it connects to the quality of your sleep, your stress levels, and your ability to bounce back. You're going to learn what impacts it, how to track it, and most importantly, how to use it to sleep smarter and live better. Welcome to the Doze Podcast, your space for real, unapologetic conversations about the power of sleep. I'm your host, Soda Kuczkowski, certified sleep coach and founder of Start With Sleep and the Doze. With nearly 20 years in sleep health education and advocacy, the mission behind both of my companies is clear: to reframe the way sleep is understood, prioritized, and practiced. Whether through curated sleep tools, customized workplace wellness programs, or community education, we help individuals and organizations place sleep at the center of sustainable personal and professional success. Because sleep is not merely just a luxury, it's your most powerful strategy. Today's topic is one I'm especially excited to explore because it bridges two of my favorite things: measurable data and meaningful change. And we're talking about heart rate variability, not just what it is, but what it says about your nervous system, your resilience, and yes, of course, your sleep. So, what is HRV? Well, it's the variation in between each heartbeat. So, unlike your heart rate, which counts beats per minute, your heart rate variability measures the subtle shifts between those beats. And these fluctuations are regulated by your autonomic nervous system, and they tell a powerful story. You know, a higher HRV typically means that your body's adaptable, that you're managing your stress well, and that your nervous system is balanced. And a lower HRV means that you're most likely in a heightened state of stress response. You're stuck in that fight or flight mode. Your body may be overworked or under-recovered, and your sleep quality may be poor even if you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You need to think about HRV as a window into how your body is recovering from everything that you're putting it through, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Your heart rate variability is like a whisper from your nervous system. And when it's high, it means that your parasympathetic nervous system is in control. This is often called the rest and digest state. Your body is calm, you're balanced and focused on recovery. It's a sign that you're adapting well to daily stressors, both physically and mentally. But when it's low, it's that sympathetic dominance, that fight or flight response. And that means that your body is stuck, right? It's in survival mode and stress is taking over. You know, your heart rate stays elevated, your system is on high alert, and over time, living in this state can lead to burnout, inflammation, and disrupted sleep. We often see chronic low HRV in people who are chronically stressed, people who, of course, are sleep deprived, overtrained athletes, if you're living in a state of constant go, or if you're managing chronic conditions with no consistent recovery rhythm. And this is where sleep comes in, not just as rest, but as regulation. You know, sleep impacts your heart rate variability. When you sleep well, your parasympathetic nervous system activates. Your HRV increases, especially during deep non-REM sleep. Your body repairs, recovers, and it resets. But if your sleep is fragmented, too short, or disrupted by stimulants, stress, or alcohol, your heart rate variability, it takes a hit. And some of the signs that it may be out of sync or that your sleep might look like waking up tired even after getting enough sleep, feeling anxious in the morning, if your heart rate is elevated at night, if you feel emotionally reactive or drained, or if your workouts plateau or your recovery feels delayed. And these aren't random, these are messages. When it comes to tracking this, you don't have to guess because you can track your HRV with wearables that are fairly reliable. The research really isn't conclusive on this. There are a lot of wearable devices. What they say is that something that's strapped to your chest is always going to be the most accurate. And a lot of the devices that are on the market are either rings that you're putting on your finger or ones that you're wearing on your wrist. But the best ones that are on the market are things like the Oura Ring, the Whoop, the Apple Watch, the Garmin, the BioStrap. I lean more towards the Oura and the Whoop. But here's the key. you want to look at trends, not individual numbers. A dip after a stressful day, that's going to be normal. But a downward trend week after week, that's a signal that it's time to change something, which means it's time to shift from just looking at the data to action. And for that, I've put together 7 unique sleep-based strategies to support your heart rate variability and your recovery. The first is mouth tape for nasal breathing. So nasal breathing stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, while mouth breathing increases the sympathetic, that stress response, reducing your HRV. So the first thing you want to do is you want to find a safe mouth tape. And at the Doze, we carry 2 brands, the Dream Recovery and the Mute brands, because they're plant-based. They're just a lot safer for the environment as well. So I'll drop a link for those products in our resource tab below. But as a bonus, when we're promoting nasal breathing, not only does it help to minimize or reduce snoring, but it also helps to support those deeper sleep stages. Second is to time your sleep to your chronotype. Because when we're sleeping out of sync with your natural circadian rhythm, it creates internal stress and it reduces that HRV. And first, you want to discover your chronotype and align your bedtime, wake time with your body's peak melatonin production. And you can find yours by using the Sleep Space app that I recommend, and the link for that trial is below. But they also provide an extended list, beyond the traditional. There's been the early riser, the night owl, and then there was a sleep psychologist that kind of recoined them to the dolphin, the lion, the bear, and the wolf, right? But there are variations of this, but it's about finding out what's the best schedule for you. Third, you can add weighted blanket therapy, but you don't want it to be too hot. Gentle pressure from one can stimulate deep pressure touch receptors, helping calm the nervous system and increase our HRV. So you want to make sure that when you're looking for a weighted blanket, first, you want to make sure that it's 10% of your body weight. You want to avoid overheating. So you want to look for breathable or cooling versions that are like bamboo or have the temperature regulation. Personally, I own the Layla brand, but there are a few others that are out there. There's the Gravity, there's Barabee, so there's a few. The next is to use a pre-bed soundtrack with binaural beats, those delta or theta waves. So when it comes to these ranges in delta and theta, they can reduce brainwave frequency, so it enhances deep sleep, and it improves your HRV by facilitating a parasympathetic state. So the goal is to listen to it for 15 to 30 minutes before bed using your headphones. You can use apps like the brain.fm, right, for different frequency playlists. Or again, that Sleep Space app that I provide that 14-day trial for does have soundscapes that emulate this in there. Fifth, you want to make sure that you are sleeping in a pitch black room, because total darkness equals a nervous system reset. Even dim light at night suppresses melatonin release, and it can elevate nighttime heart rate, both of which have a negative impact on HRV. So you want to make sure that in your sleep space that you're using blackout curtains. You want to cover up any LED lights and, wear a sleep mask. It's the best way to block everything out. And I would eliminate any night lights that are unnecessary. But if you do choose to have one, whether you need one in the hallway or if you're someone who just needs to sleep with a little bit of light, I would recommend that amber or red spectrum bulb. 6, you want to add magnesium glycinate or magnesium topical chloride at night. So magnesium supports nervous system regulation and sleep depth. So glycinate is a form particularly effective for calming the brain and improving HRV. But I recommend the spray to avoid any absorbency issues, based on lifestyle factors. If you're not drinking enough water, if you're over-caffeinated, if you have a diet that's high in processed foods, if you're taking calcium supplements, there's a lot of things that can hinder absorbency, right? But for supplements, when you're taking them, if you're taking them in supplement form, you want to take it 30 to 60 minutes before bed. You always want to make sure that you're checking with a provider too, especially if you're on medications, to make sure that there's no interactions there. And I always, mention that a pharmacist is the most underutilized resource. So if you are deciding to take something, I would pass it by them while you're there. You also want to make sure that you're using clean, third-party tested supplements. You want to avoid citrate because that can upset your stomach. A lot of them can cause stomach binding because dosage is really important as well. And that's going to be based on an individual basis, how much you weigh, your medical history. There's a number of different factors that go into how much you should be taking, which is why I think that the spray is best. And, I'll drop a link below for the one that we carry at the Doze. And then the last tip is you want to make sure that you're optimizing your bedroom air quality, because oxygen equals better HRV. The poorer the air quality, the less the oxygen, which is more stress on your cardiovascular and your respiratory systems during sleep, which lowers HRV. So you can do this by, using air purifier to reduce allergens, dust, and pollutants. Consider sleeping with a slightly cracked window for fresh air, if it's safe. Add air purifying plants, like the snake plant and the peace lily, because these are really low maintenance. And I like to talk about the snake plant because there was a study that came out that showed that it reduces 95% of toxins in the air over a 24-hour period within a 12 by 12 space. So it is a very powerful, small plant, but very powerful in terms of helping with the air quality. And my last recommendation with that is sleeping with the door open. Now, my firefighters hate when I say this, and of course that's going to be a safety issue, but when we sleep with the door open, it can promote better airflow and temperature regulation, and it also reduces, those carbon dioxide levels, because studies have shown that lower CO2 levels achieved through better ventilation, like opening a window or door, are associated with deeper sleep, better sleep efficiency, and fewer awakenings. And as a bonus, of these 7 tips, you can stack some of them, using them in combination. You can use a weighted blanket with the binaural beats with a blackout room. That is the HRV enhancing sleep trifecta. Or you can try mouth tape with the magnesium topical spray and a digital sunset. So that's eliminating all those electronic devices that emit blue light. And that adds up to a nervous system decompression protocol. What you need to know is that your HRV score is not a grade, it's a guide. It tells you when to push harder and when to pull back, and it reflects how well you're sleeping, but also how well you're living. And the truth is, most of us are not resting nearly as much as we need to recover, let alone to thrive. So for this week's strategy, this is what I want you to do. I want you to keep a sleep journal, and I want you to write down a few things for me. First, what time you went to bed, what time you woke up over a 7-day period. Next to it, I want you to write how you felt when you woke up. And if you are tracking your heart rate variability, with a wearable device, I want you to keep track of that score as well. And then I want you to take notes on, stress levels, what you've eaten, alcohol, workouts. Look for patterns. This isn't about judgment. It's about creating awareness. Your data is simply your body talking back to you. So pay attention. The more you track and reflect, the more likely you are to uncover real opportunities to improve how you sleep, recover, and show up each day. If this episode helped you rethink how your body speaks to you, I want you to do me a favor and share it. HRV is not just for athletes or biohackers. It's for anyone who wants to be more in tune, more energized, and more rested. And if you're ready to go deeper into your recovery, let's connect. Visit startwithsleep.com to learn more about our services and programs, or check out the Doze.co for our curated line of sleep tools, including the Sleep Space platform. It acts as a sleep tracker, a sound machine, and a phone charger all in one, while shielding you from harmful signals and supporting deeper rest. And you can find it at the Doze.co under Tools I Trust. Until next time, sleep well.